Right. Okay. So last 2 days we're doing we're doing the Rambam. We did Makbili's commentary yesterday. So Chesed, according to the Rambam, is giving good that is not owed in a greater at all, or giving good in a greater measure. Tzedakah is giving that which is due to a person to them, or giving an existing thing that which is befitting for its existence. And then Mishpat is giving the nidon good or bad. That's what he says. Whether it's what do you call it? Oh, actually, I think we're on the previous page. I think we're at number 5. Whether it is for good or for bad. Okay, then we read the Makbili, who said, based on the Rambam's examples of tzedakah, that the Rambam gives ever-expanding examples. So first, in his definition, you would think that if you, and he gives his own example, when you heal someone who's sick, that is tzedakah for them, okay? Because you're doing what is roy for their existence. But then you have giving back the mashkon, which is an action that it's lachati tzedakah, that it is good for you to develop the sensitivity to the poor person. Then you have utzedakah tiye lanu ki nishmor lasos as kol mitzvah zos. That ulchati v'yachshaveh lo tzedakah v'hem yibashem v'yachshaveh lo tzedakah is nope, got it wrong again. Let me start again. Curing the sick person, that's tzedakah for him. Then l'chati tzedakah for the mashkon is you acting in line with good midos, and that's tzedakah for you because you're giving your rational soul what it needs, which is the good midos. Then the next example is the hemin berashem v'yachshaveh lo tzedakah. That's all good midos is tzedakah. Okay, from the fact that it talks about the midah of emunah or bitachon in Hashem. And then the last one is all the mitzvos are tzedakah insofar as they develop you. And that was in the Makbili on Gimel. He says at the very end of the footnote on like above 5, he says, "Ha-mitzvos hein begeder tzedakah al-adam mipnei shehem mefatkos es nafsho karoilo." The mitzvos are tzedakah for a man because they develop his soul properly, as is befitting for him. Okay. All right, so then we had the definition of Mishpat. Now let's go to the Rambam and finish reading the Rambam, and then go back to the Makbili. Rambam in 5. Im kain, if so, Allah bi'adenu, we come to the notion that Chesed chal al ha-tava ba'ofen klali. Chesed is a reference to general beneficence. Utzedakah al kol tov she'ata osed b'shel mida tova she'al yada ata maybe es atzmacha l'shleimus. And tzedakah is any good that you do on account of any good midah that brings you to perfection, that brings yourself to perfection. Mishpat yesh shetotsaaso tihe onish v'yeshiteh tova. And mishpat, some outcomes of mishpat are punishment, and some of them are good. Ukvar bi'arnu b'shlilas hata'arim. We've already explained in the negation of attributes. That's in Chelik Aleph, Prakim 53 and 54. Shekol Torah she'Hashem meturbo b'sifrei hanavim hu Torah peula. That all of the attributes that Hashem is given in the Sifrei Nevi'im are attributes of action. Nimsa, consequently, shemi b'chinas hava'aso es hayukum l'metzius hu nikra chassid. So consequently, God bringing the universe, I had to look up yukum in modern Hebrew, which is universe, bringing the universe into existence, that's what makes us call him chassid. Okay, because olam chassid yibaneh, God didn't need to create anything. Rachmav al hachalashim, and by virtue of his rachmim on the weak, klomer, this is got to read between the lines here, klomer, hanhagas, or read the lines, hanhagas balei chaim be'emtsaus kochosehem, governing creatures through their faculties, hu nikra tzaddik. That's why we call God a tzaddik. Okay. Umibechinas hatovos hayachasios v'hapegayim hagadolim hayachasim hamisrachashim baolam, and by virtue of the good, the relative goods and misfortunes, the great relative goods and the relative goods and great misfortunes, great relative misfortunes that occur in the world, shechiyav osam hadin hanovea min hachachma, that are necessitated by judgment that flows from the chachma, hunikra shofet. That's why we call God a shofet. Okay, this is like stuff that's very easy to gloss over. This is what we want to get at though. Right, so we just defined 3 attributes of Hashem: Chassid, Tzaddik, and Shofet. Chassid is reference to the act of creation yesh me'ayin. Tzaddik is a reference to the fact that God designed all animals with their faculties that they can use to preserve their existence. And we call God Shofet because of the outcomes of the laws of nature in the world. Okay? Yeah. If this is not shaking you to your core, then you're missing something. Okay. Or you're tired. All right. Yeah. All right. But maybe you'll get wowed when we see Makbili. Torah, but we'll finish the Rambam first. Torah kavar hishtamsha b'mefurash b'shloshes hashemos ha'ela. The Torah uses these three terms explicitly. Hashofet kol lo yaseh mishpat. That's by Avram and Sodom. Kel emunah ve'in avatak v'yasharhu. A trustworthy God with no iniquity, righteous and upright is he. That's in Hazino, and Rav Chesed, and that's in the Yugul Midos. And then the last line of the Rambam is Matarasina b'pirushan shal mashmu'iyos hamnuachan halalu ha'asakim mavola perek haba. Our explanation of the meanings of these terms is an introduction to the next perek. Okay, so now let's look at Makbili on the side and then Makbili on the bottom. Okay, so Makbili on the side, starting on page 403. So it looks like he doesn't comment on Chesed because he did that earlier. So God's governance of animals through their faculties makes him called a Chesed. Do you have it? You got it? Okay. All right. Haramam Yotzer Zika bein hamunach tzadik misha ose tzedakah lebein hamunach rachum misha merachim al hazulas. This is very critical for our chapter 10 because we noticed that same transition, right? The Rambam in chapter 10 in Hilchos Matanos Aniyim was talking about tzedakah, and then he transitioned seamlessly into rachamim. So the Rambam here is making that connection. That's what he means. Yotzer Zika. He's drawing a connection between those concepts. Ki misha merachim al hazulas. Oh, sorry. Va'omer Hashem ma'anik l'chol nivra es chayav. Okay, here comes modern Hebrew words. God equips every created being with grants every created being its life and its ability to grapple with the difficulties of its life. The Zo Rachmanuso, and that is God's mercy. This is shaking me to the core. Okay. I have not realized this idea before. Okay, so in other words, I think the way that we think of God's mercy is, he alleviates you from your suffering, right? No, right? God's mercy on you is giving you the capability to grapple with the difficulties in life, right? As Bruce Lee, as Harav Baruch Lee says, do not give me an easy life. Grant me the ability to cope with the difficult one. That's really what he's arguing that the Rambam is saying here. And I'm talking about for humans. For animals, God's rachamim is by giving the spider the ability to weave the web, by giving whatever creatures are the ability to grapple with their challenges, which we talked about when we did Ashrei, and which I talked about in my Yugam Mido share, okay, based on the Rambam. And in general, that is through giving man bechira. Okay, so how does God have mercy on you? By giving you bechira. Okay, not the kind of mercy that you yearn for. That is God's being merciful. No, he's saying for human beings it's in that manner, but the general concept. I don't think it's everything, but that is how the Rambam is saying it in his definition in the Moreh here, right? That God's mercy on the weak, klomar hanhagas balei chaim be'emtzalos kochoseim, right? He is defining there. So the question though is, how far does this extend? For example, when God doesn't want to destroy Klal Yisrael on account of the Chet Egel, right? We would say that that's rachamim also, But so that's going to be the question here that I think we have to figure out on our own is the Rambam saying that it's, yeah, exactly. Right. So the question is, does everything fit under this category? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is man's rachamim also? It's not like man's rachamim is one conventional way to alleviate suffering.
Well, that's the thing, because the way that the Rambam transformed our understanding of man's rachamim is he ended up saying it's all, for tzedakah at least, that tzedakah is all tzedakah to your rational soul by developing good midos. And his initial definition made it seem like it's defining it based on what you do to others. But then as we go through his definition, it made it seem like it is really essentially about how you're treating your rational soul, which will manifest itself by how you relate to others, or that would be like a barometer for it, So that's why I'm not sure how radically the Rambam is transforming our understanding here. Yeah, Chaim?
I'm just kind of grappling with this. Doing rachamim, or having rachamim makes you tzaddik.
Yeah, usually we think of those as opposites, right?
Or not necessarily opposites. Why won't you say that if he has rachamim, it makes him a rachim?
Right.
Why,
Why
a tzaddik? I'm not really seeing. I would say if he was saying by doing tzedakah to all the things, and that is this thing,
right,
then he would be called a tzaddik. So.
Okay, correct. So I think we have to, for our purposes, let's distinguish two questions. One question is, what is the Rambam saying? The other question is, what makes the Rambam say it, or how does the Rambam get it? I think we have to today focus on what is the Rambam saying, and the Rambam does explicitly make that segue from tzedek to racham.
Oh, and is that Makbili's point?
Yeah. That's Rambam Yotzer Zika ben Hamunach Tzadik Misha Os Tzedakah lebein Hamunach Racham Misha Racham. So, totally legitimate question: what makes the Rambam do that? But the Rambam is doing that.
Right.
Okay, then next in Makbili, Umibichinas hatovas hayachasios v'hapigayim hagdolim hayachesiyim. Now, I think when he says, I don't know how Makbili translates the Chelik Aleph Perek Beis about Tov and Ra and Gan Eden, but that's what I'm assuming he means by relative good and bad, as opposed to like those are like relative values as opposed to emes and checker, which are absolute. Let's see what he says here. Everything God does is good. Because there's no evil that comes from heaven. But man thinks in a relative manner or a subjective manner that some of God's actions are good and some of them are bad. Even though God is governing his world through justice and tzedakah without any iniquity. Okay, Makbili is going to expand on that in the footnote at the bottom.
Is that Heblish?
Heblish?
Evil?
Oh, no, I don't think there's a relationship between the two. Yeah. All right. Actually, I want to go to Makbili now here. See that Makbili at the bottom, harchavos v'iyunim. So this is his expansion. Okay, so this is where he gives us a little discourse. Chesed Tzedakah Mishpat. Tir Hashem kechasid, ose chesed. The description of Hashem as a chassid, as one who does chesed. Mashma uso, it means, quote, mibechinas hava'aso es hayikum lemetios, bringing the universe into existence. V'zo gam mashmaos tiuro kiyachol. This is also the implication of the term omnipotent or able. Klomar. Now this is she. That God has sufficient existence to bring into existence other things besides himself. Now, that's the Raw Boggs Pirush of Kel Shakai, that God is the one who has enough existence to give existence to other things. Rama, I think, has a different Pirush of Kel Shakai, unless that's what he's explaining here. I'm not sure. This is also the description of Chanun. When we grant something to someone who we don't owe it, we're not obligated towards. That's why any good that comes from God is called chesed. Benigud lemachshavah hamasortit shemagia la'adam sachar al ma'asav v'yesh kein tavia musarit lekabel tov b'shel ma'asav. I had to type that one into Google Translate to make sure I'm not missing any implications. So, contrary to the traditional belief that a person deserves a reward for his actions and has a kind of moral claim to receive good for his actions. Okay, so in other words, chesed is in the normal usage is you're giving someone something that you don't owe them. In the divine usage, it is bringing the universe into existence. Okay, yeah. All right, now we get to tzaddik, and this is the whole reason why we're here in the first place. Tiyur Hashem ketzaddik, our description of Hashem as a tzaddik, klomar ke'osei tzedek, one who does righteousness. Mashma uso hanhagas balei chaim be'emtzaos kochoseim, is governance of animals in accordance with their by means of their faculties. Hama'anika lahem yicholos lemamesh es mahusan, which grants them the ability to actualize their essence. Okay, and we've mentioned that before. That's the idea of rechem, of the womb as being that which actualizes the potential human into an actual human. So that's, if you need a working definition of tzedek, it is actualization of good. Okay, for a being. Zo gam mashmaos tiuro kirachum. This is also the implication of the description of God as rachum. Klomar yitziras kochos bo Uvamisha magadal oso la'achar ledaso. It's the formation of the faculties in him and in the one who raises him after his birth. Hamonim oso min hamavis v'ha'uvdan v'shomrim oso mikol pega, which prevent him from dying and which and death and destruction, and which guard him from every mishap. Umo'ilim lo bihisnahaluso hehakrachis, and benefit him in his essential self-governance. Sheb'emtsa'usa ha'adam mesugol lihismoded im hakashiyim b'chayav, by means of which a person is equipped to grapple with life's difficulties. Kedavar b'chelik harishon shel chibur, like the Rambam says in the first part of the chibur, quote, Ukemo sheyesh ba'adam koach mesuyam hakosher es evarav zelazeh umahani gosam, just as a person has a specific faculty which ties all of his limbs together. V'nosnein l'chol ever es ma sheroi k'dei lishmor al koshro ulaharchik mimenu mash maziklo, and God gave him a limb, again, faculty, an organ, which is fit to protect, to preserve his koshro, his well-being, and to distance him from anything that harms him. Who should dibur alab b'meforish harofim v'karu lo hakoach hamanhig es gufachai, and this is what the doctors call the faculty that governs the living body. I don't know if he means like man's physiology. I think that's the modern term we have, where man's physiology is that which allows him to like preserve his physical existence. Okay, we also call this nature. So too, God endowed the world in general with a power that ties, I don't know, it was Hakosh Eskalakav, that ties its components to each other, makes everything interconnected, and guards its species so that they don't die. V'shomer gam al prate minav, and also protects the individual species. The meshach hazman shenitan lishmor alehem, for the duration that was given to them. V'shomer gam chelak mi prate haolam, and guards the components of the particulars of the world. So that's tzaddik, God giving faculties to things which allow them to thrive. Okay. And the last one is Tir Hashem Kashofet, describing God as a shofet, Mashmauso Ladun as Hanidon Kfi Haroylo, Benim Zol Hatava O Anisha. So that is giving the what do you call the person who's being judged? What's the Nidon in English?
Prosecutor?
No, Nidon. Yeah, the defendant. Yeah, although it's funny to call him the defendant here, right? The guy on trial, right? In the trials of the world, right? The accused, the one under judgment, right? I think would probably be the most neutral term. Whether it's punishment or beneficence. Meaning governance of the world by the laws of nature. So that's what the Rambam meant earlier when he says the relative goods and big relative misfortunes that occur in the world that are necessitated by law that stems from chachma. That's what we call laws of nature. This is also what we mean when we call God wise or kechai, or when we call God living. That he knows existence and apprehends it. This is also what we mean when we call God rotze. It means that all of existence is governed by order and management, and is not abandoned and left to develop by chance. It's governed by will, or by desire, so to speak, with intent and purpose. So this is also what we mean when we say that God is mashgiach. This governance is Mishakefes es hashgachas Hashem ba'olamo. I don't know what he means, Mishakefes es hashgachas Hashem in this world. I gotta type this in here. Hanhaga zo Mishakefes es hashgachas Hashem ba'olamo. This leadership reflects God's care in the world. Okay, reflects. That's the word I was missing in the modern Hebrew. It reflects God's supervision of the world. It encompasses all forces of coming into being and passing away. Hisrachshuyos tivios, there's another term. Hisrachshuyos, is it tivios? Tivios? No, not. tivios.
The ions.
Yeah, natural occurrences. Okay. All natural occurrences. Kamo ra'ash ha'adama, like earthquakes, v'hamagefos and plagues, v'af brius haguf avam milchamos, and health and wars. Okay, so this is like a tremendous thing. Okay, I mean, this is, I wish, if only I'd known that what I know now, okay, I would have incorporated this into my Ralbag's Yigum mini-shiur, because that's exactly what the Ralbag said, that the Yigum harachim are not just about how God relates to man in Hashgacha Pratis. They are descriptions of how God relates to the universe as a whole. And what the Rambam did that with Chesed, Mishpat, and Tzedakah. And what Makbili did by drawing from these other chapters in the Rambam is identifying many other attributes of God. Of what did we get here? We got Chasid, Yachol, Chanun, Tzadik, Rachum, Teva, Shofet, Chacham, Chai, Rotze, Mashgiach. Okay, those are all the attributes of God that he goes through that extend from here. And as you can see, these are all attributes that are descriptions of how God relates to the universe in perpetuity, so to speak. Not, again, I think we are hardwired to think of Rachum as a particular Maaseh Hashem that intervenes and like alleviates some sort of suffering. Here he's saying the fact that God gave you an immune system, that's God as tzaddik, that's God as rofe. When we say, rofe basar mafli lasos, that is a description of that. I'm really tempted to read this last part, but if you have to go, you have to go. This chart on the last page. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna continue. B'shuli hadvarim, that sounds like another Hebrew, modern Hebrew term. Literally means like at the end of things, at the end of all things. As Proto says, Na'ir al hebet nosaf shel hamunachim chesed tzedakah mishpat mibichnes hanosin v'makabel. We're going to point out other concepts about chesed tzedakah mishpat in terms vis-a-vis the giver and the receiver. Okay, so we have here a chart. So chesed mitzad hanosin is eno mechuyav. So from the giver, it means it's not obligatory, and from the recipient, it's not obligatory. Okay, tzedakah is mechuyav from the giver. What does that mean? Ofi. Tavuna. What is Ofi in Ofi's nature? Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna see if it gives me other terms that I like. Ofi, character, nature, fiber, strain, fiber, British spelling. Yeah, nature, teva, yeah, TV. Right. So it is by nature, and he's saying tavuna. I don't know why he's saying tavuna here. Maybe he'll explain it. What was it? And then mitzad hamakabel, it's eno mechuyav, right? So I think by that he means like this, right? If I give the mashkon to you, the poor person, so it's mechuyav from my rational faculty, right? I'm giving my rational faculty what is owed to it, but I don't necessarily, by nature, have to do that to you. I think Mishpat is mechuyav from both. Mishpat is mitzad hanosin and mitzad makabel. And he says here, it's of course not chachma. I don't know why he says twin and chachma. Where does he get that from? Okay, let's look at the makbili underneath. Hahidamos lechesed tzedakah mishpat al hashalim lehidamos lakel b'drachim halalu. It is an obligation. It's incumbent upon the perfected person to emulate God in these ways. Hamata'aros as darche nihul hakel ba'olamo, which describe the ways of governance that God governs his universe. The perek nun aleph. In chapter 51, that's the palace chapter, I think. Nidonu Maaseh ha'avos u'Moshe. He talks about the actions of the avos and Moshe. V'nemar bo shelo rak sichlam shikef es nochachus Hashem. It's not just their intellects that reflect God's presence. I think that's nochachus, God's presence. Ela af ma'aseim, but even their actions. Because they engaged in practical righteousness. Kamoshnemar al Avraham ki adati v'leman asher yitave es banav es beiso acharav v'shamar derech Hashem lasos tzedakah mishpat. V'harayon hagadol hu, the big idea. Rayon is idea, thought, principle. Thank you. Hatzedek hu hayeshua ha'amitis. Tzedek is true salvation. Where does he get that from? That's a quote from the Rambam elsewhere. Yeah. Okay. Fine. This requires more thought. And then he says, Hatabala Haba'a, the next table, Mitzia Efsharus lahavanas zikas hahidamus lakel, the possibility of understanding the zikas hahidamus lakel. How do you translate that?
connection.
Yeah, I would say Zika's connection also, but Zikas hidamus lakel. Right. The relationship, the affinity to God, the relatedness to God. So, okay, let's see here. So Chesed in Hashem's actions is hamsas hamatius, is bringing into existence. And then in Pulas Adam Hashalim, and in man's actions, it's gibush kihila. What is gibush? All these modern Hebrew terms. Conquer, formation. Kibush is probably related to kibush, but formation of a community. Hakamas mishpacha, setting up a family, and then leda, and having offspring. That's interesting. Okay, he's not getting that directly from the Rambam, I don't think. I think he's just giving examples. Because right there you are bringing into existence something that doesn't exist, so to speak. Obviously not doing yesh me'ayin. Tzedakah for God is hanakas kelim lebrios lehisnahel bekofos atmam, is bestowing faculties to creatures to help them govern themselves. And then for human beings, it's matan kelim lebrios lehisnahel bekofos atmam. It's also giving tools to people to help them govern themselves. That might, yeah.
What is hanakas? What is matan?
True, correct, right.
What is like I guess like
what is
bestowing is more of like if that's what we're saying it is.
Yeah, granting.
Yeah. So that's more like I feel like that's in a way that's like more internal. Like matan is like to give someone something is like something that's external to themselves.
Yeah, I hear what you mean.
Into something that becomes internal.
Yeah, I hear, right. I mean, right. Endowing.
Yeah.
So in other words, we don't endow people
Correct.
with tools.
Yeah.
We give people tools,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So examples of this that he doesn't list, I would say like parenting is really, what is Rebbe's definition of the goal of parenting and the parenting theorem is to helping developing a child to be able to cope with reality, something like that. Yeah, or true education is enabling a person to become an independent thinker, to seek truth for themselves.
Part of it too.
Yeah, right. So that's like giving them the tools. And then the highest level of tzedakah, we haven't read this yet, but what's the highest level of tzedakah?
Like in the Misa tzedakah or like
in the Misa tzedakah, yeah.
Giving money?
Higher than giving money, but yeah, and getting them a job, right, is so that they can be self-sustaining, right? So that's the pattern here. And then Mishpat is for Hashem, B'nias Teva B'Seder B'Mitzius L'Tova L'Ra, is building the nature and order of existence for good or for bad. And for human beings, it's B'nias Ma'arechas Mishpat, is building a system of justice. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hoping, I mean, again, like for me, this is like a coming together of many concepts that have been brewing for a very, very long time. But this is why the Rambam wrote the Moreh is like the first 20 times I read this. It's just like, okay, I got my definition of tzedakah, and like I just kind of gloss over the psukim. Now I'm realizing he's like laying a groundwork for a completely revolutionary understanding of the Midos Kodesh Baruch Hu and then the halakha v'dracha. Say it again. That's what I'm not sure about. I don't know. Like in other words, I'll give you. Well, you could say that what makes here's what I think. I think that the less mature way of relating to God saving the Jewish people and not killing them is it's rachamim, because he's giving them life instead of death. But I think if you look into the Maaseh Hashem and ask why did God allow them to live, it's in order to give them an opportunity to do teshuvah and to be able to get to the level of self-governance where they are living according to their bechira b'tov, So I think, in other words, I think it's natural for us to relate to the material features of God's rachamim when really the proper orientation is towards the how this unlocks our human potential for actualization of Tzelem Elokim. Okay, this is gonna sit with me for a while. Yeah. Sorry, if you're talking about the giver or the recipient doesn't work.
Someone just chooses not to work for a living.
Right. A person just chooses not to work for a living.
Yes, and actually that you're not obligated to give it stuff, and maybe because they're choosing not to preserve.
That's interesting. Yeah, that I have to look at in terms of the first of all what the practical thing is, and then how that translates. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. Food for thought. Yep. Okay.
I like to turn the address.